Hello, welcome to AnewZ. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the headlines for the hour. Israel strikes Iran's nuclear and military sites. Tehran vows a harsh response. Israel's strikes on Iran have significantly damaged the Natanz nuclear facility, a key site in Iran's uranium enrichment program. World leaders urge restraint while the UN condemns military escalation. Iran has launched ballistic missiles at Israel as its supreme leader vows to inflict heavy blows in retaliation for Israel's overnight strikes. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard says it has carried out attacks against dozens of targets, military centers and air bases in Israel. An Israel Defense Forces spokesperson said fewer than 100 missiles were fired in 2 waves from Iran.
Sirens sounded across Israel as explosions hit multiple locations, including Tel Aviv. Iran's state news agency, IRNA, confirmed the strikes, reporting that more than 100 missiles were launched. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, accused Israel of starting the conflict, warning there will be no hit-and-run attacks without severe consequences.
Life will become bitter for them, without a doubt. They should not think they struck and it's over. No, they started this and triggered a war. We will not allow them to walk away unscathed from the great crime they have committed.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the goal of Operation Rising Lion is to stop what he calls Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile threat.
Operation Rising Lion. The Islamic regime, which has oppressed you for nearly 50 years, threatens to destroy my country, the State of Israel. The objective of Israel's military operation is to remove this threat, both the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat to Israel.
Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said Iran had crossed a red line by targeting civilians, vowing that Tehran will pay a heavy price. People are recommended to be near to the shelters and to stay away from debris.
And for the latest on the ground, we go to Tel Aviv and Trent Murray.
Well, the Iranians have spent much of Friday warning that a retaliation to Israel was coming, and we have experienced it firsthand here in Tel Aviv. Hundreds of ballistic missiles being fired towards not just Tel Aviv, but right across Israel. The IDF is saying that the Iron Dome air defense system was largely able to intercept most of them, but we are seeing that there does appear to be at least one impact in the downtown area of Tel Aviv. Certainly we heard emergency crews, first responders racing down to that area after that impact was seen, and the shelter-in-place order has now been in place for well over an hour. The Israeli government is stressing to people that while the sirens may not be going off right now, the danger does still remain, and they're asking people not to leave their shelters or their safe rooms until they get the official all clear. Certainly in the skies of Tel Aviv, you could see a number of those missiles incoming, the trails of the rockets through the night sky, but also those Iron Dome air defense batteries activating, firing their interceptor missiles up into the sky and intercepting the warheads high above the streets of Tel Aviv. That loud blast, that kinetic energy of that interception, very, very loud, shaking windows at times. And so right now, I think the question is where to from here? I mean, the Iranians had been saying they would respond to Israel. The Israelis have been saying that if there's an attack on their major population centres, then they will increase the tempo of their own military operations inside Iran. Of course, we continue to see waves of airstrikes there targeting military commanders, air force bases, weapons storage areas, and of course those nuclear research facilities. It does undoubtedly feel like right now the entire Middle East is on edge right now, wondering where all of this leads. It does feel like it will be a critical few hours ahead, not just here in Israel, but right across the region. Trent Murray for AnewZ, Tel Aviv.
For the Iranian perspective on retaliatory strikes, we go to Tehran, where our Tura Shirliliu has the details.
Iran launched its retaliatory attacks against Israel on Friday evening, minutes after Supreme Leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei said the Iranian armed forces will respond powerfully to Israel's attacks and will bring ruin on it. According to official media reports, Iranian forces unleashed a barrage of ballistic missiles toward Israel after Ayatollah Khamenei's televised speech in which he said Israel will not escape from the crimes it committed in attacking Iran. He said, Israel should not think that it has struck Iran and that is the end. They started the war and we will not allow them to escape this great crime unscathed. Earlier on Friday, hours after the massive Israeli attacks on Iranian nuclear and military sites and killing of top-ranking military officials and nuclear scientists, Iran's leader said in a message that Israel shall expect a severe punishment. Iran's foreign ministry, in a letter to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, said it was Tehran's legitimate right to retaliate, citing Article 51 of the UN Charter. According to official sources, 4 top-ranking generals of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, as well as a number of nuclear scientists were killed in the attacks. A large number of locations in and around the capital, Tehran, plus Iran's Natanz nuclear site in the central province of Isfahan, as well as sites in the western provinces bordering Iraq, were attacked. News media photos and footage on state TV show non-military buildings hit by the attacks and civilian casualties. Tura Shirliliu, reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
Tensions between Israel and Iran have escalated dramatically, prompting an emergency meeting at the United Nations Security Council. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed the destruction of key components at Iran's Natanz nuclear site following Israeli airstrikes. The attacks have drawn sharp international reactions, raising fears of a broader regional conflict.
In a rare and urgent session at the UN Security Council, IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi confirmed that Israel's strikes on Iran have significantly damaged the Natanz nuclear facility, a key site in Iran's uranium enrichment program.
At Natanz, the above-ground part of the pilot fuel enrichment plant, where Iran was producing uranium enriched up to 60% uranium-235, has been destroyed. Electricity infrastructure at the facility, an electrical substation, main electric power supply building, emergency power supply and backup generators have also been destroyed.
While no physical attack was confirmed on the underground Cascade Hall, Grossi warned that the loss of power might have caused damage to the sensitive centrifuges housed there. He stressed, however, that no radiological leakage has been detected. The IAEA also raised alarms over Iran's Fordo and Isfahan facilities.
At present, the Iranian authorities are informing us of attacks on 2 other facilities, namely the Fordo fuel enrichment plant and at Isfahan, where fuel plate fabrication plant, a fuel manufacturing plant, a uranium conversion facility, and an enriched UO2 powder plant are located. Now there is enough information for me to say to you that these facilities are also concerned.
Iran responded to Israel's strikes with retaliatory missile launches on Friday night. The Israeli government claims it is acting to halt Tehran's alleged ambitions to build an atomic bomb. International reaction was swift. Russia's UN ambassador called the strikes a gross violation of international law, while China warned Israel to cease what it called military adventurism. UN Under-Secretary General Rosemary DiCarlo urged maximum restraint as Britain echoed calls for de-escalation and diplomacy.
Iran has confirmed that several of its top military commanders and 6 nuclear scientists were killed in Israeli strikes.
Iran has confirmed the deaths of multiple senior military commanders and nuclear scientists in Israeli strikes carried out on Friday. Among those killed was Hossein Salami, head of the elite Revolutionary Guards Corps, and Mohammad Bagheri, the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces. Both men were key figures in shaping Iran's military doctrine and regional strategy. Among the nuclear scientists killed were Fareydun Abbasi Davani, a former head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization and parliament member, and Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi, head of Tehran's Islamic Azad University and a top physicist, and 4 more scientists. In addition, Ali Shamkhani, a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader and former secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, was critically injured. Iranian state television reported explosions at critical sites, including the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, where extensive damage was confirmed. Israel said it struck dozens of nuclear and military targets to stop Iran from developing atomic weapons, adding that the operation could continue for days. In response, Iran appointed new leadership within hours. Navy Chief Habibullah Sayari will replace Bagheri as Armed Forces Chief, and Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi will take over command of the Revolutionary Guards.
Angry Iranians took to the streets of Tehran following the strikes, demanding retaliation against Israel.
Crowds took to the streets of Tehran on Friday, demanding retaliation after Israel launched a series of deadly strikes across Iran. Protesters waved national flags and called for a strong military response. Many saw the strikes as a direct attack not only on Iran's leadership, but on its scientific and national pride.
We want a strong revenge, a crushing revenge, against those responsible, against the people who are truly involved in this matter. God willing, I want a definite and decisive response to be given to the root of this issue.
Negotiations not only do not solve problems, but will actually worsen our troubles. This is just one example, and today, the outcome of these negotiations has become clear.
Negotiations are not in our best interest at all. For years, we've been paying the price for these talks, and they've been nothing but a tool for the other side to extract concessions from us, only to break their own promises and agreements afterwards.
According to AFP, while protests filled key areas of the capital, other parts of Tehran remained quiet. However, tensions remained high as Iran's leaders vowed a forceful and unlimited response.
Iran says nuclear talks with the US are now meaningless following Israel's recent military strike. Tehran accused Washington of enabling the attack, with a foreign ministry spokesperson stating, "You cannot claim to negotiate and at the same time allow Israel to target Iran's territory." The 6th round of US-Iran nuclear talks was planned for Sunday in Muscat, but its future is now uncertain. Meanwhile, the US denies any involvement in the strikes and has urged Iran to return to the negotiating table. US President Donald Trump called the overnight Israeli attacks excellent. A bit earlier, he said that he gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum 2 months ago to make a deal, and that today was day 61. Trump also said that they might have a second chance now. In the first social media post following the strikes, he warned that Iran must agree to a nuclear deal before there is nothing left, suggesting Israel's next attacks could be even more brutal. A flood of reaction is pouring in after Israel's strikes on Iran. UN General Secretary and officials around the world have urged for maximum restraint, with some condemning the attacks.
Leaders and government representatives from several countries and regions called for restraint after Israel launched its biggest ever offensive against Iran in a bid to prevent it from developing nuclear weapons. Among those expressing their concern over the situation was United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres.
The Secretary General condemns any military escalation in the Middle East. He's particularly concerned by Israeli attacks on nuclear installations in Iran, while talks between Iran and the United States on the status of Iran's nuclear program are underway. The Secretary General recalls the obligation of UN member states to act in accordance with the UN Charter and international law. The Secretary General asks both sides to show maximum restraint, avoiding at all costs a descent into deeper conflict, a situation that the region can hardly afford.
President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen said she spoke with Israeli President Isaac Herzog concerning the escalating situation in the Middle East. She reiterated Israel's right to defend itself and protect its people, but emphasized that preserving regional stability was vital. Turkish President Erdogan called the Israeli strikes a clear provocation. He said that Israel has taken its strategy of drowning our region, especially Gaza, in blood, tears and instability to a very dangerous stage. Israel's attack on their neighbour Iran were a clear provocation that disregards international law. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Azerbaijan said they were deeply concerned by the military operation carried out by Israel against Iran. They condemned the escalation of the situation and urged both countries to resolve their differences through dialogue and diplomatic means. The Armenian Foreign Ministry said it was deeply concerned, especially given it was taking place ahead of the next round of negotiations. On a post on X, they added, "We condemn such actions and call for immediate cessation of hostilities." France's Macron says Iran is responsible for destabilizing the region.
L'Iran porte une lourde responsabilité dans la déstabilisation de toute la région.
Iran bears a heavy responsibility for the destabilization of the entire region. And so, I say with the greatest clarity, the risk of this march toward nuclear weapons by Iran threatens the region, Europe, and collective stability more generally. We cannot live in a world where Iran possesses the atomic bomb, because it is an existential threat and a threat to our collective security.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer released a statement urging stability in the region, saying the reports of these strikes are concerning and that the UK urges all parties to step back and reduce tensions urgently. China's foreign ministry spokesperson said they were deeply worried about any escalation.
China is closely paying attention to the Israeli attack on Iran and is deeply worried about the serious consequences that the relevant action may bring. China opposes the violation of Iran's sovereignty, security and territorial integrity, and opposes the intensification of contradictions and the expansion of the conflict.
At the centre of everything is Iran's nuclear program, as Israel deems it an existential threat for Iran to be nuclear armed. Tehran had always maintained its program is for civilian purposes. The once agreed nuclear deal curbing Iran's nuclear capabilities from 2015 collapsed after Donald Trump withdrew the US from the deal during his first term. Here's what is known of Iran's nuclear program now.
Iran's nuclear program spans a wide geography from underground bunkers to open facilities in key cities. The spotlight often falls on the question, does Iran want nuclear weapons? The US and the UN watchdog IAEA believe Tehran had a covert nuclear weapons program that was halted in 2003. Iran firmly denies this.
Many years on from that withdrawal, which has seen the US impose significant sanctions on the Iranian economy, Iran has escalated by advancing its program significantly. It is certainly very advanced and dangerously close.
Following the 2015 nuclear deal, which offered sanctions relief in return for nuclear limits, progress stalled. When President Trump pulled the US out in 2018, Iran ramped up uranium enrichment. Today, Iran is enriching uranium up to 60%, close to the 90% weapons-grade threshold.
Concretely, we don't have 100% oversight of the program, but intelligence agencies, including U.S. intelligence agencies, recently released that they don't believe Iran has made a decision yet to weaponize its program.
Now let's look at Iran's major nuclear facilities. Natanz, Iran's primary enrichment hub. Located south of Tehran, part of it is buried deep underground. It houses around 16,000 centrifuges, refining uranium up to 5%. But its smaller pilot plant enriches uranium up to 60%. The site has previously suffered sabotage, which Iran blames on Israel. Fordow, hidden inside a mountain near Qom, this site is better shielded from airstrikes. It was once off limits under the 2015 deal. Today, nearly 350 advanced centrifuges enrich uranium here to 60%. Isfahan, home to uranium processing and conversion. It's also where Iran can make uranium metal a substance used in bomb cores. Isfahan also stores enriched uranium. Kondab, a heavy water reactor with potential plutonium output. Its original core was filled with concrete after the 2015 agreement, but Iran now plans to activate the reactor by 2026. Tehran includes Iran's research reactor, used for scientific purposes. Bushehr, Iran's only functioning nuclear power plant. It uses Russian fuel, which is returned after use, reducing proliferation risks. Despite these developments, Tehran continues to signal that it remains open to negotiation with deep mistrust.
The negotiations may lead to results, or they may not. We're very skeptical of the other side. We don't accept or trust them, but we're optimistic about our own capabilities.
Talks are ongoing, sometimes in back channels.
It lasted about 2.5 hours. It took place in a calm and positive atmosphere.
Meanwhile, the US maintains a clear position.
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons.
Yet Israel's expectations go further, a complete dismantling.
It wants Iran to fully renounce its nuclear program, including the peaceful dimensions of its nuclear program. And that is something that Iran is not likely to do.
Iran sees itself surrounded and threatened, especially after seeing what happened to countries that gave up their nuclear capabilities.
It looks around and sees countries like Iraq or Libya or even Ukraine that have renounced their nuclear programs as having been made vulnerable.
In this geopolitical chess game, both Iran and world powers are weighing the cost of delay.
So there are some interests in a fast timeline, but there are, of course, obstacles in arriving at a quick deal.
But this story doesn't end with diplomacy. In the early hours of June 13th, Israel launched a large-scale military operation, Rising Lion, striking Iran's key nuclear site, including Natanz, and reportedly targeting senior commanders and nuclear scientists. With Iran vowing bitter and painful retaliation, the future of nuclear diplomacy now faces a pivotal crossroads. Will this military escalation derail talks entirely or force a renewed push toward resolution?
Now we bring you insights of Professors Matthew Bunn from Harvard University and Mohammad Marandi of the University of Tehran on what a broader escalation might bring.
This will make Iran even more determined that it needs to move directly toward producing nuclear weapons. My guess is that it will try to rebuild its program at secret locations. And if I were betting, I think, unfortunately, that the odds of Iran actually having a nuclear bomb in hand 10 years from now are probably higher as a result of this strike rather than lower. I think Iran will be more determined. They'll probably kick out inspectors. They may pull out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and then proceed at secret sites.
But the Iranian response will be devastating, and it will be something that the Israeli regime will regret. And hopefully Trump will be sane enough to stay out of it, because we all know that much of the world's oil and gas comes from the Persian Gulf region. And if the bases, U.S. bases, are in countries on the other side of the Persian Gulf, if the United States attacks Iran, those tiny Arab dictatorships will be complicit. And that would bring about a situation in the oil market that will create a collapse in the global economy, including where you are. So I think you should be praying that Trump is sane enough to stay out of this, but Iran will punish the Israeli regime.
Amid rising tensions in Iran, Azerbaijan is helping evacuate foreign nationals through its southern border. Dozens of artists and citizens from various countries have crossed into Azerbaijan as Baku responds to international requests for humanitarian assistance.
We are at the Azerbaijan-Iran border witnessing Azerbaijan's support for evacuation efforts from the Islamic Republic of Iran. The crisis situation unfolding in Iran has prompted the evacuation of citizens from several countries who were stranded there.
We travelled for a very long time and stayed here for a long time. Practically in a holding area on the Iranian side. It's clear what the situation is there. They're all just as confused and unsure about what's happening. A huge thank you. This feels like home, and that feeling is incredible.
In response to official requests, the Republic of Azerbaijan is facilitating the evacuation of individuals from Iran.
First and foremost, I want to thank President Ilham Aliyev for the unprecedented assistance in crossing the border between Iran and Azerbaijan. There are 90 people in our group. Everyone is safe and healthy, and right now they are crossing the border. Thank you for the support and attention that I know was given to our group. Truly, this was a big deal.
As a result of these measures, representatives and citizens of multiple countries, including the 51-member delegation of Russia's Pyotr Tchaikovsky Grand Symphony Orchestra, who were visiting Iran, as well as nearly 90 actors and art personnel, among them the People's Artist of the Russian Federation and director Fyodor Bondarchuk, have arrived in Azerbaijan from Iran by land. Ayten Shukurova, Nijat Gasimov from Astara, Azerbaijan for AnewZ.
And that's all we have for now from Baku. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates.